I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright, and for the first time in a long time I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I'm not falling, I'll push all my chips and go all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear destiny and it's calling. I'll keep my head up high through the downs and lows, and we're all going live. Still nobody knows, but I'ma choose what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change.
Hello viewers, I am back again. This is video PY2 Python project for beginners. In our last video, we managed to log in as an admin user. Today, we will add a record into the car's master table. Okay, let's start the superb car rental system. Let's go to the end of the program to call the main menu function. Okay, this is the main menu function. Okay, we are in the main menu function. From the main menu, we access the admin menu. Okay, let me go to the admin user. That is this one. From the admin menu, the user selects the option 1, that is add car, to access the add car function. What does the add car function do? We perform file maintenance in the car's master table. That is, we can insert, modify, update, display, and search for cars in the car's database. We also have the update customer payment and return rented car options in this menu. Let's look at the car's master table. Okay, this is the car's master table. So at the top we have the field name, and then from here onwards there are the records. At the moment I've got 10 records. For example, this one is the car ID. Mercedes is the brand. Model is C200. Car plate is W9000, and so on. At the moment we have 10 records. Later, when I add one record, we should have 11 records. Okay, let's add one record to the cars table. So I select add car. Car brand, let's say it is a Ford. Model is Ford Fiesta. Car plate number is W5656. Car color, let's say, is bronze. Number of seats 4. Engine capacity is 1800. Rate per hour is 100. Rate per day is 1,000. Are you sure you want to save the record? Yes, I want to save. Yes. Car added successfully. Now let's look at the table. Okay, in this table, we have got one extra record here, which we have just added. That's record number 11. So the function works as expected. Now let's go to the add car function and see what we can learn today. Okay, this is the add car function. It's from here. And it stops here. That is the function. Okay, see what we can learn from this function. This is the function load cast list. It returns some values. We have another function here, check car plate. This function has two parameters. That is car list and car plate. Car list is the car's master table and car plate is the car plate number. Okay, we have something here, check car plate list. This is a list variable. To insert record, we open up the car's master table. Here, we open up the car's master table and then we write to the file. Okay, there are a few things to learn here. Okay, let's do some warm-up before we tackle the add car function. Example 3. Now let's see how a Python list works. Let's say I have three strings, apple, banana, and cherry. And I want to put these three values in the list. Call my list. This is what I'll do. If you want to access the items in the my list, this is what you do. Okay, let's say I want to access this banana. The item is 0, 1. So my list here is my list 1. And I'm going to change this value to Nana. Now, I'm going to print my list. When I print my list, the output will be apple, Nana, and cherry. My list is a Python list, and I will use this type command to see what is the variable type of this my list. Now let's save this and run this program. So you can see the output is apple, Nana, and cherry. Why Nana? Because here my list 1, I change it to Nana. From banana to Nana. So this is the output. Now, when I print this line, print type my list. What is the type of this variable? Then it shows this is a list type. Okay, we move on. Example 4a. This is a Python list, and I'm going to store this information, all this information, to this list. For example, 1 is the car ID. Mercedes is the brand, and so on. I'm going to store the whole record of the car to this list. Okay, and then I'm going to print that list to show you how this list looks like. Okay, let me save this and print this list. Now, when I print this list, my list, it will show this variable. Take note that all the values here, from here to here, are enclosed in square brackets. Okay? All values are enclosed in a square bracket. Take note of that. Now, let me do another example. I will have a variable here, my list2, and it stores this information, the second record. And I'm going to print this. So your output will be my list and my list2. So it's going to show this record and this record. Now let me save this and run the program. There you can see, when I print this my list, it is this record. My list2, it is this record. Again, like I say, each record is enclosed in a square bracket. Now, are these two records familiar to you? These are the cars master table. This is an example of a car master table. Look, there's two records, identical to these two records. Now, this is a text file that keeps all the cars in the table. In Python, how do you store all the records of the cars? In Python, you can use list of lists, or you can say list in a list. Okay, now, how do you use a list in a list? The difference between a list and a list in a list is here. For a list, you have one square bracket. The ending is one square bracket. In a list of lists, in the beginning, you will have two square brackets. And at the end, you will have two square brackets. Take note of that. Now, how do I create a list of lists? Okay, let's go to the next example. Okay, this is example 4. In this example, we read the cars master table. It is a text file. We throw the value to a variable r. We use the CSV reader library provided by Python. With the value stored in R, we use the list command to store the values to this variable lines. Now, what is in this lines variable? This lines variable is a list of lists. I'm going to print these lines. When I print these lines, take note that in the beginning there are two square brackets. and at the end there are two square brackets. Number 2, for the lines variable, I'm going to print the second row. That's here. Lines 1, 1, 1. I'm printing the second row. The column is 0, 1 and 2. I'm going to print the second row with field 1, field 2 and field 3. Before I print, I'll show you the text file. This file, cast list text, is actually this file. What is stored in this lines variable is stored these 3 pieces of information. When I print this line, print lines, is going to show me these values. Take note that there are 2 brackets in the beginning and 2 brackets at the end. And when I print this line, it's going to print for me row number 2, that is this row, and it will only print first field, second field, third field. So we print car ID, brand and model. So it will print this value, 1 Mercedes and 200. I'll save the program and run. Okay, this is the output. This is the output. When I print this line, it's going to show me the output here. Because this lines is a list of lists, so you can see there are 2 square brackets. So for each record from here until here, there's 1 record. From here to here, there's another record. And the last record is this, 4. And you can see at the end, there are 2 square brackets. Remember, if you see 2 square brackets, that means this is a list of lists variable. And when I print this line, I'm printing row 2, column 1, 2 and 3. That is, I'm going to print 1 Mercedes and C200. So it's here. 1 Mercedes and C200. Let's go to example 5. Example 5. In this example, we're going to read car's master table. And the output will be stored in this my car list. This is something new. For I in range length my car list. What does this do? Okay, let me show you the table. For I in range length my car list, it will cycle through all the records in this table. Here I've got 3 records, so it will cycle through 1 record, 2 record, 3 record and so on. For each record, what does it do? For each record, it is going to print the field 0, 1 and 2. That is, for each record, let's say it is in the first record. It is going to print car ID, brand and model. Then it goes to the second record and it will print one Mercedes C200. Then it goes to the next record, 4 Toyota Camry. That is the output. So for this line, it will read the cars table, and then for I in range land my car list, it will cycle through the records 1, 2, 3. For each record, what does it do? It will print first field, second field, third field. That is, it will print this car ID, brand, model. There, car ID, brand, model. 1 Mercedes C200, 1 Mercedes 200, 4 Toyota Camry, 4 Toyota Camry. That's how it works. Now let's go to the next example. Example 5a. Let's say you have two variables. My car plate with the value W9000 and plate exists false. By default we put false. In the function we're going to say for I in range length my car list. That is, it will cycle through the records one by one here. And then it will check if my car list I3, it will check the fourth column to check for the car plate. It check for the car plate here, let's say here, 1, 2, 3, 4. For Mercedes, the car plate is W9000. It will check this car plate against this my car plate. If the car plate exists, the variable plate exists becomes true. We come out of the function and then we print a value true or false. Okay, in this example, my car plate is W9000. And if I read my car list here, there is this one. There is a matching here, W9000. The expected value will be true. Let's test the program. So the value is true. To summarize, first I have two variables. My car plate with a value of 9000. Plate exists variable, by default we put false. Then for I in range length my car list, it will cycle through all the records in the database. And it will look at the fourth column, that is my car plate. If there is a matching, this plate exists variable will become true. If there is no matching, it will be false. In this case, W9000, it exists, so it is true. Okay, let's do another example. Let's say the car plate is this. Okay, when we run the program, the value should come out false because there is no matching record. Let's save this and run the program. False. Because there is no matching record, when we print this plate exists, it's false. Example 6. How to write a function without parameters or arguments. Now I've got one Python function here, print my car. There is no parameters here. When you call this function, I'll just print you have a blue Toyota. So this is my calling function. When I run this function, the output is straightforward. You have a blue Toyota. Let's save and run the program. When you call the function, it says you have a blue Toyota. Easy. Example 7. How to write a function with parameters. Okay, this is a function, print my car plate. In this function, I am expecting an argument from the calling program. When you call this function, print my car plate, you have to provide an argument. In this case, I am providing a string. I call this function, I provide a string, and what this function does, it will print, you have a blue Toyota with license plate, and the variable. This variable is this one. This variable is provided by the calling program, that is www888. So the output will be, you have a blue Toyota with a license plate number www888. Now let's save the program and run. This is the output. You have a blue Toyota with license plate number www888. So for this function, it is a function with parameters. Example 8. How to call a function and accepts its return value. Now you look at this function. What's my car plate number? When you call this function will return a string WXX2828 to the calling program. This is the calling program. You call the function. What does the function do? The function will return to you a string WXX2828. And then what do you do at the calling function? You will store the value WXX2828 into this variable, my car plate number. So if I ask you, what is the value in my car plate number variable? You will say the value is WXX2828. Now I know the value of this my car plate number, so when I print this line, my car plate number is this one variable. The value of this is WXX2828. So the expected output is my car plate number is WXX2828. Okay, now let's save the program and run it. This is the output. My car plate number is WXX2828. Now that you have a better idea of how functions work, let's get back to the add car function to test your knowledge and skill. This is the add car function. First, we create a variable, car plate exists, we say false. Another variable we create, index equals 0. Then we get the output from the user. Next, we call the function load car list. What is this function doing? Let's look at the function here. There are 3 lines. Load car list. It will read the car list text file and place all the records to lines, and then return lines. Return lines meaning it will return all records that is in the cars list table. So what this load car list function does, it reads the car table, take all the records and return it to the calling program. So now this car list, what does it contain in here? It will contain all the car records. Next, we call the function check car plate. In this function, we have to provide two arguments. The first one is car list. Car list is the table of cars that we obtain from here. And we also provide the car plate number. Car plate number is provided during user input here. So when we call this check car plate, we got to provide two arguments here. Okay. Now, what does the check car plate do? Okay, we look here. Check car plate function. This function has got two parameters. That is, it expects two arguments from the calling program. There is the car list and the my car plate. What does it do? It will, for I in range length my car list, it will cycle through the car master table and check for the car plate number. If the plate exists, then this variable plate exists yes no equals true. It will cycle through all the records and then it will return to the calling program this variable plate exists yes no. So the value is either true or false. At the same time, it also returns a car ID number. What is this car ID number? Okay, let me show you the table. The car ID number, this car ID number is this one. If you run this program for I in range length my car list, the program will go through each record until the end. When they reach until the end, the car ID is 11. So this car ID is 11. Okay, to summarize, when you call this function check car plate, you provide two arguments. What does it return? It returns to you a true or false, yes, no, and the car ID number. It provides two pieces of information. With that two pieces of information, you will store it in this variable. Check car plate list. This is a list variable that contains two values, a true or false and the car ID number. Now, to get the first value, plate exists yes no, that is a true or false value, you do like that. You get the variable, put in the first element 0. So this element will have a true or false value and will be stored at this variable. Car plate exists. To get the car ID stored in this check car plate list variable, you put in the element 1. That is the second variable. So the car ID, you will store that in last sequence number. If car plate exists, then we print the car plate number is not valid as it is already taken. If car plate does not exist, then we do further checking. So we check the car plate to make sure the length is less than 8 characters. And we also check that the car seat is numeric, the engine capacity is numeric, the car price per hour is numeric, the car price per day is numeric. If index is not equal to 0, then we say the attributes of the car is invalid. Please try again. Or else, the user key in the proper information. What do we do next? We print out the information that the user keys in, and then we ask, are you sure you want to save the record? If the user say yes, then we print. Else, we say record is not saved, the user cancel the add operation. Now, let's say if the user say yes, what do we do? Last sequence equals to integer last sequence plus 1. Okay, let me open up the database. This variable last sequence has a value of 11. To insert a new record, the record number must be 11 plus 1, that is 12. This is what we are doing. This last sequence number is a string. We convert to an integer and then we plus 1. So 11 plus 1 is 12. We store in this variable last sequence 12. Next, we open the car list table with a pen attribute. That is, we want to insert one record into the text file. So we have a handle, car list. This is a handle to open the text file. So with the handle car list, we write a record into the text file and close the handle. Remember that when you open a handle to a text file, you must always close it. Next, we print car added successfully. When it is done, we send the program flow to the admin menu function.
Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.
Okay, that's all folks. If you like my video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. See you again in the next video. Bye bye.